Hey guys, Ted Simpson here, ready to show you another painting today. Look at this monster 18 by 24. One of my last ones I have in my inventory currently. This is kind of a cheap one from the local art store. It's got a crossbar there. Not my favorite thing to work with, and you'll probably see why when the canvas is that close to the crossbar and the motions that we make with this style of painting. Sometimes we see the crossbar peeking through. In this case, not so bad. It's not like for sale or anything. Just to show you guys the technique. And I gotta apologize for the extra sound here. You might hear some fan noise off in the distance. It's awfully humid in my basement today. I had the dehumidifier disconnected all night, so I gotta run it, unfortunately. So the reason why I had it off, I'm not sure if you saw last night's Bob Ross Twitch TV broadcast. I was on there with the host of the Bob Ross podcast, The Joy of Bob Ross, a happy little podcast. I was there doing the very first Bob Ross rewatch. So they asked me to pick one of my favorite episodes. It's hard to say my favorite, my all-time favorite, but one of my favorite episodes, and we watched it and we talked about it, along with special guests and giveaways and so forth. So that was fun. And unfortunately, it took away my time in creating my weekly YouTube video. So here it is, 6 in the morning on Wednesday, and I'm painting for you guys. So let's just see what happens here. I'm going to take it light right across that crossbeam and putting on some Alizarin Crimson. Look how that just pinkifies right as we work our way into the scene, into that liquid white. How much you want to put on there, it's up to you. Lightening up my touch will soften and just take out those brush marks. Not quite sure how much of this we'll see, how much we want to see. It's up to you. And today, we're going crazy. We're using Prussian Blue. Prussian Blue, a deep, almost navy blue. And let's just drop in some color across the top. Want it a little stronger right there. Get it across the top. Then I'll work my way down so it gets a little bit lighter and not so bold by the time it hits the crimson. Lighten up my touch going across that crossbeam. So I selected Series 27, Episode 3. It's a very, in my mind, a Halloween-y painting. Bob mentions Halloween during the episode, where he made all those gnarly trees and a gessoed brown black background. There we go. Thought it was fun just sitting there watching a Bob episode with someone else. Normally I just sit there and watch and do my research by myself, but it was fun to talk about the episode. And you can go back, just go to twitch.tv/Bob Ross, look at those past videos and you can see the broadcast. So I'm going to clean most of the paint off my brush, and then starting right down here where those two colors meet, blend them together. Soften, create a transition, maybe even a little lavender will show up there. Not really overworking this. I love these little indications of clouds in the background. Soften it even more. Nothing wrong with cleaning your brush. Give it a little softenings. And maybe, while I'm here, pull out a little more of that Prussian Blue. I got lazy and didn't use my knife to flatten some color down. We'll have some water across here. Ugh, cross beam. You'll feel the death of me here today. Little liquid white mist right there. Just gotta hit it a little harder. There we go. We're gonna have some water down in our scene here today. That land's gonna have to come across the middle there. Alright, let's switch right on over. Do I seriously not have a knife? Good thing I had a couple over on the other table. Let's get rid of some of that stuff with the white in it. And I'm going to make up a purpley color with the Prussian Blue today. Dark purple. Look at that crazy violet shade. I love that. Make sure you get that color off your knife. Make sure it's all getting mixed. There we go. So, cut off a roll of color here. And today's painting is going to be a big old lazy mountain. Today's painting is not going to have the standard type of highlight here. It's going to have just little softer highlights today, not big, what do you call them, breaks and holes. That's the word. And find an outside edge that looks good to you here. Maybe let it wander out. And then just lightly scrape it off the excess. Putting some color on, and then lightly scraping off the excess. Want there to be a nice outside edge. And some color up there, because you know, we move that color with another brush. Big old ridge here, huh? I think that'll do. Let me clean this brush. It has a little too much liquid white in it from prepping the canvas. So, you can use a new brush, or just take our time and clean out with our paint thinner. Where's my beater bucket here? Beater rack, beater bucket, one of the two. There we go. And just to be on the safe side, a couple on the easel. But I also give it a little spin in the paper towel here. So what do we got? Pull that paint. This is my favorite bit. You pull, you got that paint on your brush, and you just fill in the soft part, just like that. Pull a little bit to the right. There it goes. Sometimes I pull and I accidentally scoop. You gotta pull a little bit more to the side here than down. And sometimes we pull down, give it a little bit more vertical angle. It's up to you. Let's see here. None of this is set in stone yet, just trying to move the color and create some basic shapes here. Nothing wrong with wiping your brush Keep it nice and light at the base. Wow, that's a big one. Big old ridge happening here. Now today's mountain is going to get highlighted by our white, but it's going to be, well, not pure white. Well, that was too much blue. Maybe just a touch of the background color. Dull that white a little bit. See that? Just a little bit off-white. I'm going to take my knife and we're actually going to be putting highlights using my knife opposite now. Instead of pulling out to the right, I crank my angle up here and I'm just going to drop some to the left. Whoa! Oh, crazy there. So it's still a very light touch, drifting that knife down and out the opposite direction. Wiping my knife, getting a little more. And it's okay, this time I am going to be just barely, lightly rubbing some of this right into the background color. We don't want a lot of great breaks and holes here. So I get a little bit on and then just dissolve it, so to speak. And you can make all sorts of changes and different little things, little ridges and things happening here to create that overlapping effect. Clean knife, let's just give that a little rub. Come right back with a roll. Bring some down. Nice. Liking this. It's starting to work. Doesn't matter there. Get some color. Ooh, got a little blue there. Just gotta feel it. Feel the snow blend and soften and add to it. Rub it away. See what works for you. Feel what works for you. As this goes away into shadow, maybe you just rub it a little more. So it's not as visible. And maybe in a spot or two, let's mix up a little bit of a shadow color. Ooh, golly, that's a scrapey noise. Oh, yeah, there we go. A little shadow color. Maybe here and there we can have some shadow snow over on this side, away from the light. The short side of the knife. Just following Bob's basic technique here of highlights going one direction, shadows basically going a different direction. Helps create the illusion of light and dark, shadow and highlight. But not trying to kill all that background color, letting that background color be the darkest. Look at that. Wherever you think a little bit of shadow would be sneaking in there. And of course, you can always come back to your highlight and accentuate, add in some details here that are maybe a little brighter. Bob likes those little sparkles here, right up on the edge like this, but it's up to you. Maybe you like it a little craggier, a little more breaks and holes. See that? Add a couple right where you think the sun is zinging off, if you're feeling it. And then let's just barely tap, maybe create a little bit of that mist, blur out the bottom here. There. Wow. Take some of that background color, add a little bit more blue to it, just to change that flavor. Maybe even just a tinge of brown. Maybe even a tinge of mountain mix, which is a dark blue, black, brown, red. That's a big old mixture. And we're going to have a little closer peek to us today. Yeah, see that? You can touch or you can spread. Sometimes just using the full length of the blade here, it's hard to get a little smooth transition. You know, all these little angles. Or so you get to sort of roll the knife a little. Let's just push on some color here. I'm going to try to be a little tricky here. I'm not going to scrape off as much color. Bob put this second little ridge line in here, and it's much, much darker than the first. So, if you don't scrape off as much paint, then it should be a little bit darker. Right up to the peak there, right up to the edge. There we go. Look at that. Really creates a sense of depth and distance here, having that little bit darker color. And maybe this is more of a, it's not even getting any snow there. Maybe, I don't know. I'm making up stories here. I'm looking at this and Bob really didn't highlight it that much. Obviously you can come in here and highlight it to whatever extent you want. You know, if you wanted to put in some indications of highlight here. I added a little touch of blue, a darker highlight. I don't know. This is kind of rocky, kind of textured, because it is a little more in detail because it's closer to us. But maybe it's just in shadow, so we're really not seeing that much. But a little bit makes sense to me. Clean my knife here. Looks like Bob created this the second mountain is more of a glacier. He had some snow in here, at the bottom to help show, of course, this is a nice, still very cold scene, but maybe there's some fallen snow off in the distance, or maybe this is permafrost. Gives me a look here in my example that he creates a nice snowy section here at the base of this mountain, and it climbs up here and there, leading me to that permafrost thought there. I don't know, when I see like nature videos of people approaching, like before they even get to the first base camp of Everest, they're just going along the mountainous valley floor, and it's just all these jutting rocks and always the snow there and ice sheets just permeating the landscape. So that's the look I'm giving it here. Hopefully. I like that roughness. And we're going to jump right into the foreground. And to do that, let's see. I'll take the rest of my crimson, the rest of my Prussian blue. Now I've got some mountain mixture here. Let's take that whole thing. And I'm going to take a small amount of Pthalo Green. Pthalo Green is a very strong green, kind of like Pthalo Blue. It's kind of an electric green. For me, it just gives me a more different feel than using sap. Let's try just a little bit more. Gives me a sense of more Arctic look. I don't know. Can't think of the word right now. Maybe a little bit more brown. Touch of the sap, touch of the phthalo. I'm going to green this up a little more. Let's see. I haven't done this in a while. Take a little bit of white, a little bit of my color, rub them together. There, that's the color we're looking for. Just a tester pile. Get rid of it. And now we go into the fan brush here. And we're going to make some trees. Lots of trees. Lots of tappy trees. Of course, if you wanted to here, you could create that sort of mid-ground, some background trees, or just jump right into the foreground trees and push that glacier back. So, I'm going to spend a little time here making a few of these. Tapping, building our way down. Look at the brush bending. Really gotta bend those bristles. Just doesn't work as well if you're super dainty with it. You load so much paint in your brush, you gotta tap it to get it out. Alright. Let's see, how many trees are we doing? Just a whole mess of them. We can just keep going. Reloading my brush as often as I need to. Make sure that it sticks right on top of that thick snow. Right down that center line. I could feel the resistance of the crossbeam there. I once painted on a wood dish. No resistance there. This stretched canvas always has that floppiness, that give. So when you start painting on a wood board or anything that doesn't have resistance, boy, it changes the whole feel. That little hint of green really adds something here, doesn't it? I'm just bringing down some foreground just so I can sort of figure out what I'm doing here. Maybe there's a taller one. Start small and build your way. These are the episodes I used to watch when I'm trying to learn those trees. Watch those episodes where Bob does 5 or 10 trees. Rewind it, mute it, and just watch. It's amazing stuff. Little one right there. Look how this thin paint sticks to the thick white. Just with a firm tap, that thin paint covers it right up. As long as you don't fiddle with it too much, it will not mix together. See that? Good. Let's do another little guy. Just a little one. Maybe it's a tall tree and it's far away. I don't know. Tell you what, I'm going to push up. Add some little bushy things in between and around these trees. Come right back, reload my brush. I tell you what, let's do a big one right there. Oh yeah. There's a reason Bob leaves this open here, to make this big old tree a lot easier to drop in. You don't have to worry about paint possibly mixing if you didn't get it thin enough or put too much white there. This is a way to avoid problems altogether. Make things easy on yourself. There we go. That was a big one. And if it's too light, I come back with a little more dark color, just to give it some more shadow there. One important thing I tell my students here, look at this palette. There's no pile to load from anymore. It's all flattened out. Gather it back up. Makes it so much easier to reload that brush. And you can keep going. Here's a tree. What I try to do is not have the trees the same height, you know, always try to make that top line, that top edge there, a little bit different for variation. Reload right before I go into this thick stuff here. Doink, 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 doink. There it goes. Reload. Doink, 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 doink. Do I have time for one more? Do I have room for one more? Do I need another one? Maybe just one more. I don't want to lose all that glacier, all that permafrost. There we go. Maybe a little bit more stuff here. That's pushing up. Some wild stuff growing there. And maybe just take my brush and pull some of this out. Look how we just create land right under those trees. Helps you create, say it with me, the lay of the land. That's right. How much? Of course, it's always up to you. And then maybe just a little more. I'm looking at my example here. We gotta put in some reflection. Let's clean that brush one more time. Just a little bit. Too much. I don't want any of that other color in it. Here we go. There we go. I'm shocking myself here. I've only gone through a couple paper towels total. Maybe let's help accentuate this a little bit. Let's pull a little bit of color right under these trees here. There's all this extra little reflection here. Make those trees really pop. And then right here in between the trees, there's a little bit of color coming down. Just a little more where the trees are. Alright, see, we kind of prepped it. Push in. Pull that down. Soften it a little, and then blur, mystify, hypnotize. Nice reflections. I thinks. Let's have a little baby indication. Little tiny indication of trunk. Got the color here, might as well use it, right? So, very, very small roll. And we'll touch, saw upwards to create that little spike at the top. And then maybe, just here and there, a little indication of a trunk. Sometimes I like to do all the spikes at once. Maybe that just makes it easier. You can do them one at a time if you want, or all together. I'm a big fan of just doing one thing multiple times. Then you can come in and more accurately figure out where your trunk indications are going. Here and there. Not all of them need it. Sometimes you gotta stop and reload. There we go. Good enough, good enough. I'm gonna wipe out a lot of that paint. You could, of course, just clean the brush in the paper towel, but I'm not going to bother. Dip in a little bit of liquid white, and let's go right into our cadmium yellow here. And look at that, some of that dark color automatically starts tinting. Come over here, get a little bit of the greens. Ooh, I like that. Maybe a little darker, maybe a little duller. Look at that color, I love that. Now, don't really need a lot of highlight here. You can put as much or as little as you want, and look at that. We are doing kind of a winter and a spring thing happening here and there. Little bits of highlight, not a whole lot. Let's see what very little looks like. In this method here, you can always add more. But if you over highlight, there's not much you can do without some radical adjustments, so to speak. So we start with a little, step back a little bit, assess, admire, and then maybe add a couple more. Keep that brush moving. Don't worry about any one spot. Try to keep that brush moving. Got that big one there. See, sometimes you want a lot of highlights and nice and bright. Other times you want them a little more subtle. There we go. Let's take a look. Alright. I can see I added a little more highlight to those ones on the right there. You can see it's a little bit different. Let's add a couple more here. Just a little bit. Not bad. I usually don't go back this much, but there we go. Just a little. Good enough for now. Now, let me get, I tell you what, let me get a small round brush. I'm going to move this thin down color here. And let's see here, I'm going to take a little bit of the liquid white. And I'm tapping, tappa, tappa, tappa. Look at that texture. Getting some paint, tapping it in. Getting that paint, tapping it in. Right up on the tips of the bristles. Little off yellow. Just a little bit of greenery in there. And let's create some bushes. Maybe back here. Front of this tree. Very important you reload for each one. Keep them nice and sparkly. Same thing again here. My paint got a little too flat. It's thin, but it's a little flat to the canvas, so I want to be able to stipple it right on the tips. Maybe there's one right there. Good enough. That was fun. Haven't used that brush in a little while. Now I'm going to go back to my fan brush, go into some of this yellow with this dirty color that's already there, mix it up, change it around. Let's put in some flat grass. Oh, before I do that, we need to put in a little bit of land. That way I can cover it with the grass. Just going to use my knife here, Dyke Brown, just sort of rub some of this dark brown color right there towards the water, in between the land and the water. Want a little depth perception here. This is a little further away, this is closer. So I'll make it a little more land, a little more visible here. Help that indication of depth and distance to show through. Trying to keep this relatively level. I want this to look like the land just slides into the water, not like a big cliff or anything. Then, with a little bit of my highlight color, same basic color I used for the trunk, let's juice it up a little, change things around, add a little bit of white with that blue in it. And just like how we did the mountains here, I'm just going to lay some on, let some of it rub in. change that color a little bit, but hopefully not kill the dark. Grazing it on, rubbing it as needed. And then, kind of like what I did the last part of the mountain, I graze a little right on top, just to give it a little texture here and there. Good, good, good. Now I can come in here with my fan. Get some paint right up on the tips of the bristles. And a whole lot of tapping going on. Starting right under those bushes and just working my way down to the dirt. Letting it dull and darken as it picks up that shadow color. This might be the longest step here in terms of how long it's taken me to do, but I like it. I like the effect. You can do this with the 1-inch brush or the 2-inch brush and any other brushes you want to get different results. I call this tappy grass because we just tap and move, tappa tappa tappa. And as I move away, it darkens and dulls. Gives me just the effect I want. Flat, but not like velvety flat, you know, like new fallen snow. Green new fallen snow. I like that little bit of texture there. And I stop and I mix up my color again, find out what works, change the color if you had your other yellows laid out, your Indian yellow, yellow ochre. You could make fall scenes here, make it fall colors, I should say. Little bright yellow, maybe there's some variation in there. But sometimes you gotta change and you gotta stop, and if it's not coming off, you gotta reload your brush more often and add a little bit of liquid white. It's okay. Figure out how your brush needs to be loaded and stop and reload. Every once in a while I'm taking a good step or two back, see what's doing here. And then do the next little section. Now I do like to finish quickly, but I'm trying not to rush. There's a little difference there, I think. I'm trying to finish in 2 seconds here, but not spending a lot of time going over it. As I'm moving forward here, I'm putting just a little bit more on my brush. Help it give a little bit more of a texture, since it should be a little closer. A little more texture, a little more detail. A little more sense of depth and distance. One thing that you could do is, once you get done here, you just keep tapping the stuff that's further away and you can soften it and remove detail. tapping a little harder, getting a little more color off my brush right there, just to cover this a little more quickly. Oh, we're losing it. There we go, add a little more texture there. And as I've been going through, I'm not sure if you noticed here, try to make sure that I'm covering the land a little bit. Help that grass look like it's overgrowing the dirt. And there's some spots here where you might need to add a little more, or work a little in. It's up to you to figure out those details. It can be tricky trying to put stuff in the background. I'll make sure that we're given that sense of overlap as we move to the left here. Alright, I tell you, I think we need just a bare indication. Not sure if Bob put this in or not. A bare indication of a water line. This water doesn't have a lot of movement to it, but a little separator between land and water looks nice. Keep it relatively horizontal. Right up under the landing spots. Create that little bead. Not too strong. If you want a little more movement here, feel free to scratch a little in there. There we go, look at that. I like that. Now, Bob actually added another little peninsula here, and one thing I can do is add that with my, this is my small of a 1/2 inch round brush. Drop it in a little dark here. Something like that. And then, maybe, some of it gets pulled down into a reflection. Soften it there with the big old brush. And maybe here, going back to, let's see if I have enough color here. My green, a little bit of yellow, let's turn that over. This little bit here, turn that over. Let's get into our liquid white again. That was way too much. That was far too much. That's why you're supposed to put some out on a plate. Here I go, just dipping right into the jar. This might still be too much. It's going to give me a very minty look, isn't it? I think that's a little too minty. Ah, well. We can fix that. I'm just going to come in here, grab a little bit more yellow, flatten it down here. Come right on over and let's yellow this up here. A little less, that's better, a little less white look to it. And let's tap in a nice little bush section here. Reload. Kind of making a whole little cluster here. A few bushes and trees, whichever way you think. It's a lot of paint, very little pressure. There we go. A little bit of dirt. A little more dirt. Little highlight. And then, once again, just a little bit of grass. Maybe this has a little bit of an angle to it, just to mix things up a little. Got a little too much texture, so I'm going to flatten it down. Then come in here and add just a little texture. There we go. Little bit of a titanium white. Gonna clean my knife here. Little titanium white. Just a hint of the liquid white to thin it down a little. Cut off a little roll here. Ooh, you know what? I'm gonna stop. I'm going to use the small knife, just so I have a little more control where it's going to go. There we go. There we go. Now, of course, a couple little sticks and twigs with your liner brush. Maybe even some back here. Bob could have done those, or I could have done those at the time that I put in the dark. Bob does that quite often. I could have done that here today. Some little things all kind of sticking in between and around and behind the trees. Little grassy things off in the distance. And a rare occasion here, Bob would also make some dead little sticks and twigs coming off the evergreens. Since these are so prominent in our scene here, we can add a couple. There we go. Let us take a little bit of that color. I know Bob signed in red, I sign whatever color stands out. Today I think that'll be a little bit of white, so just a little signature there. And there's today's painting. Want to thank you guys for tuning in, and of course thank you so much for your comments. I know I've got some regular commenters, and it always makes me feel good when you guys appreciate my videos here. And I'm just going to cover myself in paint while I shut this off, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care, everyone. See you in the next video.